Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Hardman, the founder of the Stoughton Writers Group, and we talk about writing with writers, local writers, to try to promote them. And we also talk about would-be writers and give tips to writing. And we're also, our goal is to increase reading and writing in the community. And that's why I thank my new friend, John Grover, who's come on with his book. He's an amazing writer. I mean, you really are. You write. I don't know how you can be so prolific. And I was telling John a story before we got on the air. I'm sorry, welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. I was telling you a story. I'm so excited to tell you this story. I don't have air conditioning in my bedroom, so I went to sleep. I had the fan on, and I woke up, and I had your story on my Kindle, right? And I'm going, oh, John again, and I read it, and you took me. The room's like 90 degrees, and all of a sudden I'm in the middle of this cold place chasing a Yeti. And you made me feel like I was there chasing it. Yeah. So, and I was kind of mad at you because I had to rush here and I didn't want to put it down to get here. That's the way you write so well.
Thank you.
Tell me how you came up with the idea for this and what's in your mind? I want to go inside your mind.
I'm not sure it's a great, you want to go in there. Well, I've been fascinated by the paranormal, the supernatural ever since I was a young kid. Yeah. It started out, watching things like Creature Double Feature on the Boston channels with my brother when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I used to watch any documentary that came up about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I was glued to the TV because I really thought that there was some hairy hominid roaming around the woods and, was he going to come and get me while I was in my bed sleeping? So I used to watch shows like In Search Of, that hosted by Leonard Nimoy. Mm-hmm. And when the first time I ever saw a video of a supposed Bigfoot on TV, I was hooked from then on. So I've always had a big fascination with the supernatural, ghosts, aliens, monsters. So I always knew from a young age that I wanted to write about these things. So that was one of the first stories I ever wrote, was about a monster that lived in a well. When the teacher in English class asked us to write a story, that was the first idea I came up with.
That is correct. And your characters come alive. I mean, how do you do that, visualize them? What's the process with that?
When I was younger, I used to outline every book, and I used to write all the character names down. I used to write all about their situations, their backgrounds, whether they survived the story or not. I had the whole thing was mapped out in notebooks. I had dozens of notebooks in my bedroom when I was a kid of stories I wanted to tell. These days, as I'm a little older, a little more tired, I tend to just write from my mind, from what I see visually. I'm a very visual writer, very visual person. Mm-hmm. So when I'm telling a story, it's almost as if I can see it running in my head like a movie.
Exactly. You write movies that are disguised as books.
I've been told that before. Yeah.
Definitely. Do you still have the notebooks somewhere? Have they been lost to time?
I think I have some of them in the closet, in the back of my closet. I think I do. I think I have some of them. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about going back and seeing if there's a story there?
I actually have. Yeah, I actually have. And I actually have pulled out a couple of really old books and revised them to try to get them, into the modern age, so to speak, because, I was writing them when I was a kid in the 80s, so they're a little dated.
they come alive again, too. When you write, I don't want to give away the copy, I want to ask you about your books, but I'm really fascinated in your writing process because I can't do this. Yeah. I'm not a horror writer. So I read you the last couple of weeks. I read Stephen King, but I really hadn't read anybody intensely as I'm reading you. Mm-hmm. And you got me hooked. So the rest of the summer is going to be some of my new friend John, who's going to keep me up at night and wake me up in the morning. And that's a compliment. I mean, that's an insult.
Oh, no, thank you. It's my goal to keep you up at night.
No, yeah, you too. My mind's racing when you're telling me this stuff here too. But when you get that process, how do you come up with the idea for the book? I mean, these are crazy. I'm not crazy, bad, crazy, wild ideas.
Yeah. I think I'm highly influenced by a lot of the shows I grew up with, the books I read as a kid. I'm always questioning the world we live in. I'm always thinking of what if this happened or what if that happened, and these ideas just pop into my head, and it's like I'm watching a TV show. Mm-hmm. And I even have to start taking notes on my phone or something because I'll forget that what I was thinking about, and then I'll put it down on paper, and then I can even just start with one sentence of a question to myself, what if this creature was real, and what would it be like if somebody actually proved that these things existed. And then that's what led me to the current series that I'm writing, which is the Lockwood Cryptid Chronicles.
Which is amazing.
Thank
I
you.
really give the high praise to that book.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I mean, buy it, and it's also available at the library too, right? Stoughton Library?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, I
Okay.
held a reading there, and,
Yeah,
and they order the book there, and it's also at the Bridgewater Public Library as well. I had a reading there as well, and they ordered the book too.
Yeah, that's the Epic Center for
Yeah.
paranormal research. So
Yeah.
are you into the Bridgewater
I
Triangle?
am. It's funny you bring that up. Yes, that's another fascinating subject that I like to read about, and I've watched a documentary on that, and there were like many stories, paranormal stories of things that happened in the Bridgewater Triangle. Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about the Bridgewater Triangle for somebody that doesn't know?
Bridgewater Triangle, it's like surrounding towns of like Bridgewater, I want to say Freetown might be in there, Abington, and it forms like a area of like forested land, like woods and forest in there. And like they say the center of the Bridgewater Triangle is the Hockomock Swamp, which is located in Bridgewater. And there's supposed to be a lot of paranormal activity going on in those woods, and specifically the Hockomock Swamp. There are supposedly people have seen colonial ghosts from the past, phantom fires. There have been large birds seen, UFO activity and everything. So, I mean, it's just ripe ground for me to pluck stories from it. So
Is that another book coming out?
it could be. It actually could be.
I didn't expect you to get into the Bridgewater Triangle, but it always gets into that when you talk about paranormal.
Yeah, eventually leads over there. Yeah, since it's so local to us.
Yeah, and it's the big birds is one people are fascinated by. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think they've seen that before.
Yeah.
You know, and all that too. I mean, I grew up in East Bridgewater, so I was like well schooled in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Oh, yeah.
As part of the lore of the area
Gotcha.
too.
Yes, exactly.
Tell me a little bit about your book without giving away the ending.
So the first book in the series is called Slipping Through, and the title is sort of significant to the plot line of the book, and I won't reveal why that is right now, but it involves a character that I invented called Cord Lockwood. And like me, when he was a young kid, he was fascinated with Bigfoot and sightings of Sasquatch. And his father had taken him on a camping trip to Washington, the Pacific Northwest, to see if they could see any traces or any evidence of this Bigfoot creature. And he had an experience. Cord, as a kid, has a really frightening experience while he's out camping with his father, and that changes the course of his life. So when he becomes an older guy, he decides to give up his job, walk away from his whole entire life, to actually go into the national parks and forests around the U.S. and find evidence that Bigfoot exists. And once he starts on that journey, it goes into some really wild directions that he never expected. So
It has a Yeti in it. You can't beat it if you have a Yeti.
you got it. Yeah, there's a Yeti in there, and there's several other types of what the paranormal world calls cryptids, which is part of a science of study called cryptozoology.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was. When you said that, I was like, that one came by me really quickly.
So cryptozoology is the study of animals that are not yet proven by science to really exist. And it covers a lot of strange animals and creatures known as like Sasquatch, the Yeti, the Jersey Devil, the El Chupacabra, and various other legends and folklore that we have around the United States and in other countries too, such as South America. And even in Asia, they have like hairy primate creatures as well over there. And I've pulled from a lot of these stories to include in the book. So that's where a lot of the ideas in the book come from. It's just our folklore and our legends. And Sasquatch is actually a Native American legend. The word Sasquatch means wild man in the Native American language.
Are you core? Is that you? Is the character you, do you think?
It's a mix of people I know. It's partly me, partly friends of mine who love nature, love hiking, love being out in the wilderness. I've been to Washington's Olympic National Park myself.
Did you see Sasquatch?
I did not see anything, unfortunately. No, I did not. But those where I draw a lot of my inspiration from.
But so it's a composite of people that you know, like in that world?
Yeah, I mean, there's some, like I watch a lot of TV shows with cryptozoologists who supposedly study these creatures and stuff. And I do pull a little from that and a little from my own belief system, my own character, and some of my own people I'm, associated with and stuff. Yeah.
The $1 million question, do you believe they're real?
I'm still kind of on the fence with it.
What would get you off the fence?
I go back and forth.
Yeah.
I need some I need some real DNA evidence, I think, to prove that there is something out there in the wilderness. But I've seen a lot of things on video, and it's hard to, you just don't know these days because a lot of it can be faked or hoaxed.
Right.
But some of the older videos where they would had a harder time faking things because they didn't have all the AI and the digital stuff that they have today, some of it just looked pretty convincing, like the Patterson-Gimlin film, which was filmed in 1967 by Roger Patterson and Mr. Gimlin, and supposedly that showed a real Bigfoot strolling across a California dry riverbed. Now, you can view that video on YouTube. It's all over the internet. You can Google it. I watched a documentary that sort of showed how the subject in the film's toes moved and feet moved and muscles moved, and I was like, that's really hard to do in a fake suit. And I'm not sure if I think that's real or if I don't think that's real. That's why I'm still on the fence, because I'm just not sure whether that's a real creature in that film or not.
You mentioned AI. How much is that going to change these sightings and things like that? How much is it a threat that you're going to see stuff that isn't real?
I think it's going to be a lot of stuff that AI can fake on video and stuff, and I think it could convolute people who are serious about studying these creatures. So yeah, I think it is going to cause some trouble. Yeah, definitely.
But flip it around. If you write a movie, your characters are going to be in AI, right?
I would not mind if they were. I mean, I would rather they be animated, like hand-drawn or classic animation by actual artists rather than AI. But it would be really cool to see these characters come to life either on TV or movie. I mean, I would love that.
Are they alive in your brain, though? I mean, when you're writing it, are they like
somewhat,
real?
Somewhat. I mean, I live with them for a while until that series is done, and then I move on to some other characters.
I'm fascinated by living with these people. I know. After reading the thing, what is it like to be embedded with them? For how long? Let me back up a little bit. How long does it take you to do a series like this?
It could take a couple of years.
Okay,
yeah.
So you're with them for a long time.
Yeah.
What's it like to be embedded with them? How much do they take over your life?
For me, it's a lot of fun. For me, it's fascinating and exciting. And I almost feel like I'm creating a new world, and one that I'll draw my readers into eventually as well.
And when you go into them, do you think about them 24/7, or are you able to put them away?
Not always, no. I mean, at some point I have to walk away because I have a day job that I have to do. So I
know, but you're making, after reading this, stay with me all day. So I was hoping the answer. I hope the answer to that question was yes, because
they do pop in from time to. They do nag me from time to time. So when they demand that a new twist be added to the story, I have to quickly write that down on my phone or a notepad so I won't forget to include it.
Are you one of these people that carries a notepad with you all the time?
I don't all the time, but I have several of them around my house so that I can get to one quickly.
Yeah, I do too. I have it every the bathroom,
right.
everything.
And on the go,
car,
I'll just use my phone if I'm out and about, and I'll just use my phone to take a note.
It's very annoying to my wife when I was a columnist that I would be out someplace, like having dinner, and an idea would hit me. Yeah. I gotta go to the men's room, and I'd come back 20 minutes later with the column done, because I couldn't get rid of it too.
Exactly, yeah.
How hard is it to let them go when you're done with the series?
It depends. It depends. If I feel as if I've wrapped the series up really well, I can walk away from it. And there are times though when, they may call back, and I might have to write in that same world again and tell a new story, or do some short stories that have come out of that. I've actually written a couple of short stories already that use the characters in this series.
Yeah. Because Mr. Lockwood, he'd be hard to get rid of.
Yeah, he is a very strong personality. Yeah.
I like him though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I always think everything writing comes down to cops and robbers.
Yeah.
And people you like and don't like.
Yeah.
He's somebody you like, and if you don't,
you do.
If there's a book, and you're writing a book like that, and there's no one you like in the book,
right?
You don't like the book,
right?
Because you don't have anybody to focus on when you're
exactly.
writing it.
You have to identify with your characters, and you have to have your readers care about what happens to them, or else the book really isn't going to be that exciting to them.
No, you got to care. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So were they going to haunt you the rest of your? They're going to be with you the rest. Not haunt you, but be with you the rest. I don't want to use that. Are they
They
going to
might
be. With you
be. I mean, they might be. I mean, like you said, Cord's a great character. He's a great guy, and I really had a lot of fun writing about him. And I still have a third book to write in this series before I can wrap it up. So Cord will be making another return soon. So.
Okay, selfishly, because I got to get through the first two still. But
Yes.
when is the third book coming? Do you think?
I think the end of the year. Yeah.
Really, that quick?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so. I have a good idea for it, and I have a good outline that I'm working on for it, and I think that end of the year I'll be able to make it.
The time we have remaining, take me through your writing process. I'm fascinated by that. Like it seems, what do you do? How do you sit down? I know you take notes all the time, but how do you sit down and
what
write?
I'll usually do is I'll start a Word document and just have ideas there. Or I'll have like a basic skeletal outline written in there, and I'll riff off of that and borrow off of that as I go. So as I sit and write, and these days it's as we all are so busy with our lives, it's harder and harder for me to find time to actually sit down and write. But I do find that I need to be in that frame of mind to write. I need to be able to sit down without being bothered or interrupted and focus on the story. Because if I'm not in the right frame of mind, I feel like the writing is going to suffer. The writing won't be as good. So I do like to sit down with some quiet and focus on those characters. And I keep a running document. I mentioned this to a reader who asked me the same thing at the reading I did at the Stoughton Library. She said, "What's your writing process like?" And she says, "Do you keep an outline?" I have a very skeletal outline. It's not very detailed, but it's just like a jumble of ideas, a jumble of names, a jumble of like scenes that are out of context. And I keep that as like a live document, and I use it throughout my whole writing process. So as each chapter I'm building something, I'll go back to the outline and say, "Oh yeah, I can use that," or "No, I'll scratch that."
In science fiction and fantasy writing, you kind of have to keep the integrity of the character though too. So how important does that come where you don't deviate? All of a sudden they're in Alaska one time, and all of a sudden they're in Hawaii the next chapter.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work that way.
It's because it's fantasy and because it's sci-fi and horror. You can get away with some of that stuff. Making the unbelievable believable is what my task is for these books. But with the character you're totally right. You have to stay true to your character and his integrity and what drives him and his moral compass. And what I learned early on, that if I had a character act out of his nature, an editor would call that out to me and said, "This doesn't make sense because this character would never do this." And I would reread it and look at it, and he's like, "Yeah, they're right. I should go back and edit that."
Is it hard to do that where you don't have the boundaries in fantasy writing, where you can go everywhere? Is it tempting to go out of the boundaries a little bit?
It's tempting, but it's. I also just maintain a little discipline about, like, even though I'm writing fantasy or horror or sci-fi, it still has to be believable to other people, to the readers. So I try to make sure that you're setting it in reality, just that fantastic things are happening in a real world setting.
That's interesting too. All right, now we're going to go back to one of the original questions I asked you.
Yep.
I visualized your brother and you sitting on the couch, one on the floor, one on the couch, right?
Yeah.
You got a bag of chips, maybe.
Yeah, probably, or cereal.
A cup of Coke,
Yeah.
and you're there, and your mind is learning as you're doing this too.
Yeah.
How much do you go back to those days, the core where you started?
Oh, I always explain how when I was young and watching monster movies and scary movies, I had this gleeful terror in my mind going on, because even though I was slightly afraid, I was having the time of my life watching these things. So my past does influence a lot of the writing that I did, and it's those early monster movies and ghost stories that fueled my love of reading about horror, writing about horror, watching scary shows, watching fantasy shows. I'm a huge lover of Halloween. I mean, Every
Really? What do you do
year.
for Halloween? What do you do for
Oh,
Halloween?
every year I have to dress up as some scary monster every year.
Have you ever dressed up as your character?
No, I've not done that. No, no. I usually throw like a Halloween party for my friends, and I usually, say to all of them, the theme needs to be scary. So make sure you dress as something scary.
See, I don't like to be scared anymore. It's not going to help. I can see where you want to do that too. You grew up in Stoughton, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, you went to Stoughton school or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, somewhere along the line, I will
Yes.
bet you Dunkin' Donuts coffee that somebody said, John, you're a writer. Who was that person?
Probably a teacher, I would
Okay.
say.
How old were you?
Oh, I was probably around 15 or 16 or something. But I had some encouragement from English teachers to really pursue writing as well.
What was that moment like when you found that?
Just pure happiness, because
Yeah.
I've always wanted to write.
Yeah.
I mean, even since I was just, an 8-year-old kid, I've always wanted to write. Yeah.
I always think writers are born. We're born with we don't use ink anymore, but we're kind
Yeah.
of born with ink in our blood. Blood tape ink instead of
Yeah.
O positive.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're that way. You were
Yeah.
this is what you were born to do.
It does feel like it's part of my DNA to write. Like it
Yeah.
feels like I've always wanted to be a writer, and that was just something that I was going to pursue. Whether I wanted to or not, I was going to pursue writing. My first fan was always my mom. She always read everything I wrote. I even gave her a copy of the book that we're featuring today. So she'll probably get reading on that. But my mom was the first person to read any short story I came up with. And she was always very impressed. She was always very, granted she's my mother, she's going to say this, but she was like, wow, can you write? And that just made me more excited to write.
Is anyone in your family a writer? Or does it go back or?
There is no one else that writes in my family.
So
I'm
you're the
only-
trailblazer.
No, yeah. I mean, there are some. I've had some artists in my family that like paint and draw and stuff like that, and I always tried drawing pictures to go with my stories, and the drawing just wasn't very good. So I decided to stick with writing.
You got the one at a time. You
Yeah.
get the other one.
Yeah.
Got that. What advice would you give to somebody, a young John sitting at Stoughton High School next year, 15-year-old John, watches all these shows that you watch, and wants to be a writer? What would you tell them?
I would say never give up on your dream. Go for it. Like if you enjoy writing and you imagine yourself creating fun fantasy worlds and you want to pursue that, jump in and go for it. And you can only learn by practice. So write anything you can, write all, and don't give up. One of the pieces of advice I was given as a young writer too was write every day. Even if it's just something small, try to write every day, because that's how you practice, that's how you learn, and that's how you become better at it.
Where do you see your writing going? What do you see next on the list after the Lockwood Chronicles?
I would love someone to make a movie out of it.
Have you looked into that? Have you pursued that much?
It's really difficult to get that opportunity, I believe, because most studios they don't take unsolicited books or unsolicited manuscripts. You have to have an agent.
Yeah.
I don't have an agent at the moment, but I'm open to the idea of having an agent. It's a future idea that I've had, that maybe at some point my books will get noticed enough that maybe I'll work with an agent, and maybe they'll find a larger audience for my books.
I just see a movie though.
I think this particular series would make a great TV series.
Yeah, like on
Netflix.
Netflix.
That's
it's perfect.
that's
Yeah, you know why though
exactly
too?
what I
Because
feel.
because you can break it up.
Yes.
It's very easy to break up. You took the
Yes.
trips. You move different places.
Yep.
You do the
There's
trips
different
too.
there's different locations. There's different monsters. There's different characters that come in and out of the story, and there's a core group of characters and that's what people sort of like these days too. Is you get a core group of people together that become really close and friends with each other and try to solve the mystery of the story.
Yeah. And you write not as short as I do, but you write short books too for that. And that I think
Yeah,
that's
they're
key too.
yeah.
They read. You can read them.
They're easy reads.
Yeah,
They're like novella.
Yeah.
They were like what we call a novella.
Right.
Authors call them novellas, and they're like a short novel, and they're easy reads. So if anyone's looking for a quick summer read, these would be great.
But it's going to haunt you the rest of the day.
It could.
Yeah.
It could.
It's like you don't get you read maybe for a couple hours, then you spend the rest of the day being haunting too.
Yeah.
when you talk about writing, do you ever talk about writing anything else? Do you think maybe someday you write something different than this, or?
I've always loved writing horror because I've always loved reading horror or watching horror. But I have thought about once in a while getting out of my. I would love, and this is going to sound like it's a complete 180, but I would love to try comedy at some point in my life.
Yeah,
and see if I can be funny.
I can see you doing that because you're descriptive.
Yes, I'm very descriptive.
Yeah, I can see you doing that.
Yeah. And I've tried to interject some bit of humor in this current story, in the Lockwood Cryptid Chronicles. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was being scared, I was also laughing.
Yeah,
so I think you captured, your books capture the range of emotions.
Yes, that's what I was going for, yeah.
Yeah, you're scared, you're laughing, and you like the characters, so you want to know them.
Yeah, exactly.
And he has a Sherpa in it, it's pretty cool too, right?
Yeah, in book 2, we get into Sherpas. Yeah.
Which I actually know what that is. I'm writing it, but when you look at writing as yourself, like you said, you write every day. How hard is that to do, write every day like that?
It's very hard these days because there's just so much. There's so many other things pulling you in different directions. There's, you have family, you have pets, you have your day job, you have obligations. It's not easy writing every day. If you can manage it, that would be awesome. And I'll admit straight out, I don't actually get to write every day, but I write enough days that I'm pretty happy with it.
How have you been so prolific without doing? I mean, do you write fast? I mean, it's a
I always think that I'm really slow at writing, but maybe I'm faster than other writers. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been doing this a long time. That's probably one of the reasons why I have quite a few titles out there. But I've been published by actual publishers. I have self-published on Amazon, so I'm a bit of a hybrid writer. So I've had my books published by small press. And I started getting my books published in the early 2000s, probably. And then there were times when I just published the book on Amazon myself, because I can get that out quicker and faster. Yeah.
And you have more control. You have kind of control over it too.
Yeah, I have more control over it. I mean, I do hire someone to do editing on the books and do a proofread on the books. I hire cover artists.
That's so important. Most books fail because they're poorly written.
Yeah, exactly. And I find that part of the process to be kind of fun. Like I almost feel like I've assembled a small team to help me get the book out there. Yeah.
Your people.
Yeah, right, my people. Yeah.
But when you look at that though too, when you're editing a book, do you self-edit too?
I do self-edit. I admit though I'm not the greatest at that because I do still miss things, which is why I ask a proofreader to take a look at the book afterwards. But I do tend to write a page and then go back and reread the page and then edit it and then keep going and then going backwards. When the book is done and the first draft is ready, I'll read it again from start to finish to try to catch anything. But I admit there's things I miss because your mind gets used to the writing and you miss things because your mind fills in the blanks. And sometimes I think that I wrote something and I totally missed it. I didn't write it the right way.
That happens. Your mind, you visualize something different.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, the amazing seconds we have, I really want to thank you, John, for coming on. I mean,
that was my pleasure.
And I really want to thank you for writing and letting somebody like me get exposed to what you do. I mean, I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate helping out the Stoughton Writers Group. I mean, we're starting, and we hope to we have big. I always say we're small, but we have big dreams. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.